Welcome to Foulmouth Bob's History Podcast. This is episode 2, the Grimke Sisters, Badass Quakers. Last time I talked about what a white supremacist asshole Francis Scott Key was. This time I'm going to talk about Sarah and Angelina Grimke, because they were abolitionists, the good guys. Now we're talking about the early to the middle 19th century. It wasn't easy for abolitionists. For example, William Lloyd Garrison, a leading abolitionist, nearly got killed by a mob in Boston. The only thing that saved his ass was getting hauled off to jail. For women abolitionists, it was just as bad and, in a lot of ways, worse. So that's why we're talking about Sarah and Angelina Grimke. They were both born in the Deep South. Their family owned so many slaves, it said at dinner each kid had their own personal slave. That's some seriously fucked up shit. Anyway, Sarah was the older of the two. She was smart, really smart, brilliant. Even her slave-holding, sexist bastard father said if she'd been given the same education as her brother, she'd have been the best lawyer in her state. But because she was a woman, that wasn't allowed. More fucked up shit. Sarah, even as a young child, quickly saw slavery was evil. She told her mother if they didn't renounce slavery, their family would burn in hell. A few years later, she got up in her church and said the same thing to the whole damn congregation. Now, telling slave-owning bastards they're going to hell didn't make her too popular, but Sarah didn't give a shit because, well, the truth fucking hurts. Skip forward to the 1830s and Sarah is now living in Philadelphia with her sister Angelina, who she'd brought over to the abolitionist cause. They'd become Quakers. Now, most of you probably associate Quakers with that guy on the cereal box, but when it came to the abolition of slavery and women's rights, Quakers were way ahead of everybody else. But the Grimke sisters weren't even happy with them because the Quakers didn't want them speaking in public, which at the time, please note, I'm making big fucking quotation marks with my fingers and rolling my goddamn eyes, speaking in public wasn't ladylike. The Grimke sisters said, fuck that shit. They talked to anybody who'd listen about the evil institution of slavery. Now you're saying, but Bob, when do we get to hear about the Grimke sisters being badasses? Well, Frankie fuckface, pay attention. Everything they did was badass, because back then, a woman couldn't take a shit without the okay from some man. But the Grimke sisters were on a goddamn mission to end slavery. They didn't care if they broke the law, went against custom, or outcast to their family. They fought for justice, and that's why they were badass. So in May of 1838, the abolitionist movement opened their shiny new building, Pennsylvania Hall. They partied for a week. This included Angelina Grimke getting married to Theodore Weld, a fellow abolitionist. Attendees were a racially mixed crowd, including former slaves. To the vast majority of working-class white people, this was too much. If you listen to episode 1, you're probably seeing a pattern here. Northern white workers were afraid that if slaves were free, they'd compete for jobs and drive down wages. Instead of blaming the people who exploited them, rich white guys, they blamed people who were exploited more than they were. So the abolitionist convention and its festivities was shit they wouldn't tolerate. Angelina became one of their targets. On Wednesday, May 16th, she spoke in front of a crowd of white and African American women at Pennsylvania Hall. A mob of white workers surrounded the building. They tried to throw Angelina off her game. They threw bricks and rocks through the window and shouted threats. But Angelina kept speaking. As the bricks and rocks came through the window, she said, "What is a mob? What would the breaking of every window be? Any evidence that we are wrong or that slavery is a good and wholesome institution? What if the mob should burst in upon us, break up our meeting, and commit violence upon our persons? Would this be anything compared to what the slaves endure? Now, I don't know about you bastards, but if I was in a building surrounded by a mob that hated my guts, who had torches and bricks, I don't know if I'd be able to speak. Hell, I don't know if I'd be able to control my bladder." When leaving to protect each other from the mob, white and African American women walked arm in arm. The mayor then suspended all abolitionist activities. That Friday, a mob returned and burned down Pennsylvania Hall. Firefighters let it burn, but protected the surrounding buildings. The site where the building was is now occupied by Philadelphia's local NPR station. If you happen to be in the city of brotherly love, it's a short walk from Independence Hall. So you know I'm not a bullshitter. There's a marker you can read. Both Angela and Sarah Grimke continued to work for abolition and women's rights their entire lives. badass Quakers to the very end. In the interest of full fucking disclosure, the information in this episode was derived from Angelina Grimke Weld's speech at Pennsylvania Hall on the PBS website. It can be accessed at www.pbs.org/wgbh/AIA/part4/4H2939.html and Women and the American Story, Resource 13, Fire at Pennsylvania Hall. It can be accessed at www.nyhistory.org/sites/defaults/files/new files/CWH-curriculum/module2/resources/resource13fire at pennhall.pdf. Shit, I think I need a ventilator. Anyway, I'm Foul-Mouthed Bob. See you next time for episode 3, George Washington, Stubborn Bastard. Thanks for listening, fuckers.